If you're anything like me, you love orchids, but mine always end up without flowers. So today, Tanya is here to help me figure out why. Hi, Tanya.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great. So you're going to show us how to repot some orchids.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, first of all, you want to know when they need to be repotted, and basically they will tell you. Like here's an example here. You can see that.
Oh, he's falling apart.
Well, it popped the pot that it was in because it had outgrown it.
Okay.
And what I had to do last night, because it was almost like cement in there, is I had to soak it overnight to soften everything up so that you could take it off and clean it to repot it.
Okay, so the first step is to soak it.
So soak it to make all, because you don't want to tear all the roots up.
Okay.
So this way you can get it out of the pot easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what do we do?
Okay, so then we want to go in and we want to clean it. And you have to have a sterile environment whenever you're doing this. So you want to take your tools and you make sure in between all of your different plants, you sterilize them with alcohol.
Oh, I had no idea.
And now if I can continue using this on this plant, if I were to go to another plant, I would sterilize.
Okay.
Then you want to cut off all of the dead pieces, like this right here is dead.
Okay.
You can cut that off.
So after you get them, they start off, they're beautiful, you buy them from the store, they've got the orchids on it, and then
Right.
the orchids fall off, and then it's just leaves or a stick. So a stick like that you just cut off, that's a dead stick.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. And you want to make sure you never transplant an orchid until the flowering is died. Otherwise, you're going to kill the plant or the flower because it's going to get stressed when you go in and you play with the roots and trim them and everything.
Okay.
So that's the first critical thing. Second critical thing, make sure you're in a sterile environment because you don't want to transfer any diseases, any mites, or anything into the plant itself. Let's say, for instance, one of the other things that's good to use is, for instance, household cinnamon.
What does that do?
Well, let's say, for instance, this leaf right here was pretty bad and I wanted to cut off the bad part. Mm-hmm. After you cut it, you want to put some cinnamon on it to prevent it from getting any diseases. Yeah, it seals the cut.
Wow.
So don't forget your cinnamon, it's very important. And then, after you've cleaned off the plant,
Do you need potting?
well, first thing you want to do is make sure you get a clean pot. Now, I clean these pots with a little bit of bleach and water before reusing them. And then you have lots of broken shards if you have orchids. And you want to put them in the bottom to kind of weight the plant down.
Oh, okay.
That way, because it's going to get top heavy.
Yeah, that's true.
Then, yes, and then before I use my mix, I always moisten it. So you can see it's nice and wet.
So you want to use this instead of a potting soil? You want to use...
Yeah, you don't use potting soil, you use chips. You can put stones, you can put other things in here, peat moss, you can put anything that you feel just to give it, like for instance here I've got some stones in there too.
So that makes sense. That's why when you get them, usually I have like a base of stones
Right.
and then the moss and the dirt on top. Okay.
Well, you want to get rid of that moss, so you want to make sure you take that off because that stays wet too long.
Okay.
You can use either plastic or the clay pot. The clay pot's better because it will dry out. The orchid doesn't want to stay wet.
Okay.
Okay.
Good to know.
The best time to repot is between February and June.
Okay,
That's
so now.
when, yeah, exactly. That's when the plant is developing new roots and new growth, and it'll flower this year. If you don't do it during that time,
Then
it'll probably take 2 years to flower.
Okay, so I'm on my second year and I just started to see some green sticks.
Right. And it only blooms on a new growth. So let's say you'll never get a bloom on this old growth. You have to wait for new growth. And I'm just trying to see if there's anything.
So orchids are a labor of love and patience.
Yes, they have patience. If you don't have patience, forget it, because they do what they want to do in their own time.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, right.
So the cinnamon is only if you're going to chop off dead leaves.
Right.
And then...
Well, not if they're dead. If, like, for instance, that dead piece I chopped off, you don't have to put cinnamon there.
Okay.
Just if it's a green.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you want to keep... So would you cut this in half and plant half? Could you?
Oh, well, what I would do is I would take all of this off. I would clean this all out. You see, this is all old chips. It's all stuck together. It's almost like cement.
Okay, and then you rinse that.
Yeah,
And you
and
plant
I
the
would
clean
even
one.
see a lot of these roots are already dead. So once I got it all cleaned off, I would rinse it with some warm water, clean it off really good, and then cut off all of these dead roots. And then when you get it down to where it should be, the live plant, that's when you want to take it and put it in there.
And then how do we keep them alive?
Well, what I do too is I use like a time release fertilizer.
Okay.
Only because I'm too lazy to mix the powder up, and because that one you have to do 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah, that's what
This is like a 3 months. Every 3 months you can put a little bit of this
You just
in
pour it
there.
on top?
Yeah, just put it on top. And then you want to make sure you water them. And the key is to water them early in the morning
Okay.
so that they're dry by the end of the day.
And are they indoor plants, outdoor plants, either
They
or?
could be both. If they're indoor, you want to be careful about how much water you put in there.
Good to know.
Yeah, but if it's outside, you can take your hose and just water it until the water starts coming out.
Okay.
And then you leave it, and then the next day you can check it. If it's, put your finger in there about an inch. If it's dry, you can water again. But normally, you don't have to do it every day.
Tanya, thank you so much. Now I know what to do when I get home.
You're so welcome.
I'm very excited that I can get my orchids repotted and hopefully see some flowers later this year.